Hey everyone, it's me, Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi out here in Northern California. Welcome to the Hovering Splendor Zentangle class. I'm so excited to bring you this piece. I'm going to be teaching it for the Napa Public Library tomorrow, but I thought I would pre-record it and have you guys try it out too. So let's talk about the things that we're going to need for class today. I'm going to be working with the Micron PN Pen, but you can use your favorite Tangle pen. I have a white Jelly Roll gel pen in my hand. I've got the number 10, but you can use your favorite white gel pen. You know me, I'm a Prismacolor girl, so grab your Prismacolor pencils. And if you don't have Prismacolor pencils, grab whatever color pencils you have and play along. I will be working with a graphite pencil today. We are going to be doing a little bit of blending with the graphite pencil, and we'll also be using it for our string. You know me, I love to work with the Genesis tiles from the Tangled Yogi shop. They're super smooth and great for receiving color pencil. So if you want to check them out and you want to support me as a teacher, go ahead and go over to tangledyogi.com and check out the shop. Now, if you don't have the Genesis tile, no problem. Go ahead and grab your sketchbook or any of your favorite smooth paper and make a square that's 4.5 by 4.5 inches, and we're going to have a ball. So with that said, let's get started with Hovering Splendor. So many of you know that I like to do a little bit of a breathing exercise before we get started with our Zentangle practice. So let's come into a comfortable seated position here. Allow your spine to grow tall but not hard. Let your shoulders melt away from your ears. Allow your hands to rest in your lap. And if you're okay with it, allow your eyes to close for a moment. Draw your attention to your breath, feeling the breath on the inhalation as it fills the body, and on the exhalation how the body relaxes and releases. Inhaling through the nose, and gently exhaling through the mouth. Inhaling through the nose and gently exhaling through the mouth. And let's just keep breathing here for the next few moments. And as we breathe, I'm going to share with you a poem from a friend of mine. Her name is Tennille Critchfield, and she has this beautiful poem about transition, and I just love that idea for the butterfly class that we're going to be doing today. And the poem goes like this: Transitions, from one ending to another beginning. There is always a messy middle, the river of misery that swirls and confuses, turning you deeper towards the shadow. Once you let in the light, the dam breaks. Everything that you have been holding back, hiding from, flows towards the opening. You find yourself graceful again, moving with flow and ease towards the lit up bridge, and walk easily over to the other side. And taking in a nice deep breath right here, and letting it go with a sigh, and getting ready for a new beginning. Let's pick up our graphite pencils here. I happen to have a mechanical pencil, and I'm just going to start by creating my dots in my corners, and you'll notice that I'm actually going to leave a fairly thick border on this particular composition here. I would say that I've got about 3/4 of an inch to an inch there. And what I'm going to start to do is I'm going to start by connecting my dots. And so for me, when I'm doing a composition like this, sometimes it's the quieter spaces on the outside that make a real difference to a piece like this. So I'm just coming in and adding a nice thick border to it. And then once I've got my border in, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide the space on the diagonals just like so. So you can see that I'm going to be working on the diamond here, and I've taken it and cut it in half there. So you go ahead and do yours, and I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to talk about the tangle Buria. Okay, so grab a piece of scratch paper here because we're going to talk about my new obsession. I've done a couple of different classes with this tangle because I just love it so much. And so this is Buria by UT Anderson, and I just love this tangle. I think it's wonderful. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by creating a V, and I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can really see it. So it's a V, just like so. And then once we have that, what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and we're going to divide the space in half there. Okay, so it's a V or an upside down A, upside down capital A. That you could see it lots of different ways. Now I'm going to come from my corners here and I'm going to land in the center of that A. And then once I have that, I'm going to divide these shapes right up at the top. Then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to make a seed-like shape that's going to come down into the triangle. Now you can see I've got these two little triangles here. I'm going to go ahead and divide those in half. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to arc these corners off. So for those of you who are familiar with the tangle and Zeppel, this is very similar to in Zeppel. And then I'll come in and I'll come in. Okay? Now in this particular class we are going to add a head to our butterfly, but Buria does not have a head in it. And then I'm also going to add some antennae for the piece. Okay, does that sound good? Hopefully it does. So let's go ahead and start to add it into our piece here. So you can see I've got my square all ready to go, and I have the division that's going through the center of it. So you can see that I'm working on the diamond here. You can see that my square is set as a diamond. Now what I am going to do, just to be a guide, and I'm continuing to work with my graphite pencil as you can see, I'm just going to gently divide this space here so that I know where center is, and then I'm also going to come into where this triangle is right in here, and I'm going to divide it in half with a horizontal line. So you can see that's pretty close to half right there. I'm going to come down from this corner and I'm going to land at the center, and then I'll go over to the other side and land at the center. Now once I have that, you can see I've got my two spaces here. I'm going to go ahead and divide that in half. I'll come over here and do the same, just dividing it in half. And then I'm going to start with that seed-like shape, remember? So a nice seed-like shape. You can see I've got my two triangles here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to divide, and then I'm going to go ahead and divide. I'm going to come in and start to round off the corners just like I did before. Coming over to the other side. And then I'll come down to the bottom pieces right in here and right in here. So you can see it's really starting to take shape already. And then I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to add the head, but before I add my antennae, we've got some tangling to do in the background. So let's go ahead and do our Buria, and then when we come back we're going to ink it in, and then we're going to start to work with the background a little bit. So I've gone and picked up my pen here, and you're going to see me go ahead and just start in with Buria in here. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm just going to focus on the actual butterfly itself. I'm not going to ink in the string for the outside edges. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come from this point. You can see here's my arc. I'm just going to go ahead and come from that point and start from there. And I'll do the same thing on the other side. So we're going to leave the string part alone. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And I will come in again. And you know me, I love to do overdrawing. For me, there's just something about learning a tangle and doing it twice that just helps me to feel like I've really internalized it and got it. You know, sometimes it'll take you a couple of times to internalize a tangle before you actually go and use it in many other spaces. And I know a lot of people, they'll do a tangle once and then they won't come back and do it again. And I know for myself that using these tangles over and over again, they become part of like a language that we're speaking. They become good friends, I think. You know, when you're working in a space and you're looking for a way to fill that space, you can always come back to a piece that you're familiar with. And I think that sometimes overdrawing can help us to feel more familiar. I hope that makes sense. So I've got that inked in, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start to pool my ink inside the body of this little butterfly that we've got going on here. And I'm going to leave a little shimmer and sheen inside of that butterfly. So you can see that I'm going fairly lightly with the pen and I'm doing little circles because I find that little circles fill the space and gives me very little scratch. You know what I mean by the background kind of poking through. So take your time and fill yours in, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the background and add in another technique to the piece. I'm going to come up to the head here and just add a little bit of sheen in the head and then finish that out. You go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine. So we're going to be doing a lot of coloring techniques in this class, and one of the coloring techniques we're going to do is wallpaper, and we're going to use it in a multitude of ways for this class. But I'm going to pick back up my graphite pencil here, and we're going to start to do a variation on a tangle called moon pie. And I'll just go ahead and grab my little scratch piece of paper here and talk about moon pie. This is a really fun tangle, and it gets used quite a bit in Zentangle, and I really do love it. So what moon pie looks like, and I'm just going to use a V again because we're going to be working in that part of the piece. It's an arc followed by another arc, and then you have these little C curves inside of it, and then you have another arc that's kind of a narrower arc, and then you can put some tipple in there, or a lot of people refer to this as orbs or string of pearls. And then I'll do another arc. And then the way that I've seen moon pie done is that people do these kind of arcs over the top of it, just like so. So this is moon pie, and it's a really fun tangle, and I love the way that it looks, and people do some fantastic stuff with moon pie. We're going to do a variation on moon pie. So let's come back to our piece, and we're just going to turn it. So you can see that I've got my butterfly up above this time, and it's almost like it's going to fly down to touch what we have going on here. So I'm going to come up about an inch away from this point right here, and I'm going to create an arc. And you can see that I'm still working with my graphite just because I'm just lightly bringing this in. Now for our moon pie, we're actually going to start with another arc, really, really narrow. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add our string of pearls. And just take your time with your string of pearls because, you know, I always talk about how our shapes give us away if we're rushing, and tipple or orbs will always give you away if you're rushing. Take your time with this particular tangle. It's just so relaxing anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to close that off with another arc. And then I'll go ahead and do a narrow aura right behind it. So aura is exactly what you think it is. It's that echo line that goes behind it. Let's pick up our pen and go ahead and ink in what we just did. So we're building in our moon pie here. You can see that I'm really taking my time. And remember to soften your shoulders. And if you're holding your breath, let your breath come back in. And you know, the only reason why I say this is because I do the same thing. So I'm just telling you what I'm thinking inside of my own head, meeting the challenge in a gentle way. And Zentangle is the perfect place to meet a challenge in a soft way. I'm just going through and getting those string of pearls in, and you can see that I've got those interesting little interstices. Those are those little funky triangles that end up in between your circles. You just go in and add a little bit of puddling or pooling your ink into those areas and getting it nice and clean. And so there you can see we've got the beginnings of moon pie. Now you can probably see that I started to teach the background and I realized that I hadn't hit the record button. So we're going to start to do the background now. So I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil here and just go ahead and add in that little line for my guide here. And for those of you who are new to Zentangle and don't know a lot about the tangles, we're going to do a tangle called poke leaf. And poke leaf is just two lines with a frowny face on them. And then you create this little leaf-like shape that comes up and around. And we're going to use the essence of the top of this for the next part. So you're going to see me come in and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to put two little dots on either side of this main string here, and then I'm going to come up and create a little landing spot for myself. So what this is going to look like is I'm just going to come up, land, and I'm just going to go down and over. And I'm only going to do 3 of these because I really want to be able to focus on what's going to be inside of them. So I'm just coming in and then I'm going to drop off the side. So you can see 3 little petals right there. Now I'm going to extend a little line and you can see that I'm working with my graphite pencil still. And then for me, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to aura. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to follow that line and follow that line. So I'm really just mimicking what's right here. And then I'll come off the side and follow that line. Same thing over here. I'm just following this line and coming up and over and up and over so that we get this really beautiful, almost Moroccan-like shape or flower in here. Now I'm going to add in 2 more petals in here. So I'm going to just give myself 2 little dots, and then I'm going to come out just a little bit, and it's going to be a little smaller, this petal. So I'm going to come out and back in. Same thing over here, 2 little dots, coming out, and just adding those 2 little petals in. Now, if you have space on the sides like I do, you're more than welcome to do a half petal, just like so. And we're going to mimic what we just did before. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come in right over here, but because these are so separated, they're just going to come down and land on the first one. So it's going to look like this. And then over here, I'm just going to mimic what I just did, but you won't see that top line. So there we have the beginnings of our beautiful moon pie up here. It's kind of like a Moroccan moon pie. So I'm going to pick up my pen and I'm going to ink it in. And you know me, I like to go nice and slow when I do this. Really just take your time with your lines. You know, I have a lot of students that say to me, "Oh, my lines don't look like your lines. What's going on?" And I always say, slow down. Take your time with this. Your lines always tell the story of what you're doing. So if you're going really fast, your lines will reflect that. And remember, I don't want yours to look like mine. I want yours to look like yours. You can see I'm just taking my time, bringing it in. Nice soft overdraw here. Just letting your body have a felt memory of what you're creating. Soft shoulders here. Relaxing in your jaw. Maybe softening in your forehead and your eyebrows. And there you have that really cool tangle for moon pie, which is really, really fun. And I can't wait to teach you the shading on this because it's super fun. All right, so go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring in a little bit of a tangle into these areas right in here. One of my favorite tangles when I first started learning Zentangle was Crescent Moon. So I'm just going to write in Crescent Moon here. I see a little theme, a little moon pie and a little crescent moon. So crescent moon is just an arc with an arc and another arc, right? And a lot of the time you'll see crescent moon pooled in at the bottom, which is very, very cool. And for our particular piece today, we're going to be using it quite a bit. So we're going to take crescent moon and we're going to put it into our little petals on the outside. We're not going to do the ones in the front. We're going to use a different technique for that. So what this is going to look like is I'm going to come in and I'm going to very gently bring in a crescent moon, and let's go ahead and zoom in on that. And then I'm going to do another arc right behind it and another arc right behind that. And then I'm going to do it again right next door. So I'm just coming in, create the crescent moon, an arc, just like so. I'm going to go ahead and do a half crescent moon here. and then I'll do another one over here, just a half. Super cool and super fun. Now I'm going to pool my ink into these, so you're going to see me just come in and pool my ink just like so. And over here as well. And I just love the way that looks, and when we start to bring in the color, it's really going to have a beautiful feel to it. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to do mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to bring in some really cool texture into the center. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to remove my guidelines from the center of the piece here. You can see that I'm just taking them away so that they're not going to be a part of this anymore. Wish I had my gummy eraser, but I'm actually traveling right now and don't have some of my things with me. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn this back around here. And I just love the way that this feels. It just has a really nice softness to it. Now we're going to be using a technique called wallpaper. And wallpaper is where you are tangling with the color that you are coloring with. Now, right now, we actually haven't even laid down a color yet, but we are going to lay it down, but we're going to start a little bit differently with our wallpaper this time. So what this is going to look like is we're going to be using that same crescent moon, and we're going to start tangling with that. Now you can see that my pencil is pretty well sharpened up here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start by creating a very soft arc over the top of where the head of my butterfly is. And I'm using a really pretty color. This is violet, and it's PC 932, and I love violet because it has an almost grayish purple feel to it. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to do another arc, and then I'm going to do another arc. I'm going to come in over on the side here, and I'm going to create an arc here. I'm going to do another aura and another aura. Coming over to the opposite side. Just really taking my time with this. I'm going to come right back into the center. And I'm going to continue to build out. So I've got this nice kind of trifecta of crescent moons in there. Let's go ahead and zoom in on this a little bit. I'm going to come off the side here and start to do some more. So let's go ahead and create some more crescent moons. And I'm almost creating these crescent moons like another tangle called Shattuck. So I'm letting these kind of build off of each other. And just building off. And I'm trying to keep them about the same size. Really trying to keep them about the same size. I'm going to start to build into these areas here. And you can see that when I get close to the petals, I'm actually, lifting up my pencil and working around what's in front of me. And this will be different for everybody's piece, but it will work out just fine. I'm going to come in over here. So I'm looking for these little indentations to fill. Might be able to throw one more over here. Coming in over here. And then I might be able to get one more in there. Just kind of lifting up my pencil and letting it kind of fill the space. So you might find these little indentations here and there where you can actually put those in. So go ahead, fill your space, take your time with your lines, go slow. And then when we come back, we're going to start to shade this in, and I'm just so excited to share the technique with you. So I still have my violet pencil in my hand here, and we're going to start to do some shading into the center of these pieces here. So we're going to be using all different kinds of pressure with this pencil. Now for those of you who have taken many of my classes, you already know this, but for those of you who are new to color, each color pencil is 3 different colors. You have light, you have medium, and you have dark. It's all about the amount of pressure you're putting on a pencil. Now, I have students tell me all the time, oh, I don't have a big color pencil set. I don't have the same colors as you. I promise you, if you just use the techniques that I'm using with the pencil, you will have as many colors as you need. And always remember that if you like the colors that I'm using together, you can go and buy Prismacolor pencils singularly, and I think they're about $1.50 a piece. So I'm going to come in here to the center, and I'll start with this one first since it's a really nice one. And I'm going to go very, very softly, and I'm going to shade in half of that little area that we have at the bottom. And then I'm going to come over just a little bit and create this little light source. And I'm going to fill it. So you can see that's really, really light with the pencil. Now I'm going to come back in and I'm going to give it a little bit of pressure. And you can see that that pressure gives a really nice shadow. Okay? So there's the first technique. So I'm going to go into all of the bottom of these pieces and do that exact same thing in all of mine. So it's just the little bottom one that we're going to fill in, and then when we come back we'll start shading over the top. I'll show you that technique in a minute. Already you can see that this is starting to take shape. I just love the way that the softness of the purple plays against the black ink. It's just really, really gorgeous. So what we're going to do now is we're going to start to build in the shading for the upper part of this piece here. I'm going to come in very, very softly and start to dust in my color on the sides here. So I'm going really softly. Let's go ahead and zoom in a little bit more on that. And then I'm going to come in and I'm going to give this a little extra pressure on the sides, just to give it a little bit of drama. And you can see that that brings a lot of dimension into the piece. Let's go ahead and do another one. So you can see very, very lightly first. Very, very lightly over here. And you can also see that I'm being very organic with that line. I'm not creating a hard line for the sheen. I'm actually giving this a little bit of organic feel to it. I like it to look a little bit messy. And then I'll come in and add a little bit of shadow in here. And a little bit of shadow over here. Now I'm not trying to blend anything yet. We will come back in with our white pencils in a minute and do some blending. So all I'm going to do is continue with this technique of really going lightly, creating that sheen in the center, and then giving a little bit of shadow on the sides. And I'm going to do that in each one of these really cool crescent moons. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to do some blending here. So you can see that I've had a chance to do a little bit of that shading. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my my violet again, and I'm just going to define the upper line of each of these crescent moons here. I want to give them a little bit of differentiation from each other, so I'm just lightly defining that line so that I don't lose the definition of each one. You can see I'm going very slowly and cleaning that up just a skosh here. Coming over here and doing the same. Really nice and soft. Now once I've got those redefined, we're going to do a little bit of shading that I've been working with lately that I really like. And so what this is going to be is I'm going to pick up my graphite pencil again. I have a number 2 pencil in my hand here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of that pencil into this area right in here. So you can see that I'm just going to add a little bit of that pencil right along the edge here. I'm going to pick up my white pencil from my Prismacolor set. This is PC938, and I'm just going to start to blur those colors so that I start to get almost like the smoky amethyst kind of color in here. And I love how it starts to blend into the lighter purple. Look at the definition that we've got going on here. It's really kind of cool. The other thing you can do is you can come in and do a little bit of blurring up top as well. So I'm going to show that technique again so that you get the idea here. So let's go ahead and I'm going to come in right over here. I'm going to give a little bit of graphite right here and a little bit of graphite right there. I'm going to pick up my white pencil and I'm going to do little circles that blur out the graphite. Now what I love about this is that it takes the graphite and it sets it. So if you're left-handed like me, you know that left-handers always end up wearing graphite on their hands here. And so this is a really nice way to not have to deal with graphite moving around, which for me is a big plus. So I'm going to go through on all of these and just add a little bit of graphite to the edges and then pick up a little bit of that white pencil and go ahead and blur it out. So I'm going to have you do yours. I'm going to do mine. Remember not to go too far into the lighter purple because you don't want to lose that light purple. You can go a little bit forward on it, but just try to keep that purple actually purple or whatever color you're using. Okay? So have fun with that. So I want to give you one of my favorite color combinations, and I love this because it makes it look like a little bit of watercolor. I've got a little bit of the process red in my hand here, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to randomly kind of jump through some of these and just add just a touch of that process red, and what it does is it makes it look like watercolor. So it just looks like that background got a little hint of that really pretty soft magenta color. So I'm just kind of dancing through and hitting just some of them with a little bit of that process red. I'll come over here and dance around in here. And maybe I might just add one more right up in here. So I'm not doing it to all of them, I'm just doing it to some of them. And then I'll pick up a little bit of my white, and you want to make sure that your white doesn't have any of that gray left on it. And I'm going to just do a soft blend in with some of that process red. So like I said before, if you're new to color and you like some of the colors that I'm using, write it down so that you can go in and use this color combination on some other Zentangle things that you're working on. I think that you'll find that using these colors together in different pieces really makes things interesting. So I'm going to let go of the purples and we're going to start to bring the greens into this piece. So hang on, finish yours up, and then we're going to get started with that. Okay, so let's start to bring in a little bit of contrast into this piece. I happen to have a couple of colors in my hands that we're going to start to use. This is the lime peel green, which is PC1005, and I also have in my hand PC909, which is the grass green. Love these two together. They're such an excellent combo. So let's go ahead and we're going to turn our piece and we're going to start to come into the moon pie in here. And I'm going to start by doing a little bit of work with the gem. Now you're going to want to have your graphite handy as well as your white pencil. So I'm going to come in with the lime peel green first, and I'm going to go very, very softly with the lime peel green and start to bring this in. So you can see it's a really soft dusting of that lime peel green. And let's go ahead and zoom in on that bad boy, really get in there. Once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pick up some of that grass green. And I'm going to very, very softly start to do some shading. I'm getting in there really, really soft. Little circles just to keep it really interesting and also get a nice mist of color. Once I've got that mist of color the way that I want it, I'm going to come back in and I'm going to press a little bit harder. And you can see that I'm keeping it really organic. I'm not doing a hard line or anything like that. Remember, when light hits stones and all different kinds of things, it doesn't hit it with a straight line. It gives it a little bit of movement, right? So we want to have a little bit of movement in that line. Now, I'm going to pick up a little bit of that graphite and I'm going to just bring that graphite into the outer edges. I'm going to take a little bit of that lime peel green. This is the first green that I started with, and I'm going to start to blur the edges of the graphite. So I'm using this the way that I would have used the white, but I'm using the green instead. And I'm just going to start to move a little bit forward on both sides. You can see that I'm blurring that graphite out, and then I'm coming up and forward. Still letting that move forward just a little bit more. You can already see, look at that really nice drama that I'm getting in there. It's very, very cool. I love that. And then if you want to, you can pick up a little bit of your white, making sure there's no purple left on it from before. And I want to make sure I really got that off of there. And then I'm going to go ahead with that white and start to really get a softness in that stone. Now you can play as much as you like with the colors. You know, there's all different ways that you can do this, but I really like that softness. Now, if you want to get a little flash of that purple in there, so let's just say you like stones like I do, and I love labradorite. And labradorite usually gets like a little flash of another color in there. So I'm just going to take a little bit of that process red again and just let it flash into that stone. I'm not going over the green, I'm just laying it down very softly, and then I'll come back in with a little bit of that white and I'm going to blur it out. It almost looks like a watermelon tourmaline. If you've ever seen a watermelon tourmaline, those are beautiful too. So this kind of gets that kind of flash going. And you can play and go back and forth, add a little bit of green. Just love the way that that just kind of flashes off of there. Makes it interesting. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to use a little bit of that wallpaper in our petals here. Let's carry this technique up into the petals here. So I have some of that lime peel green back in my hand here, and I'm just going to start to lightly dust in those petals. I'm going very, very softly. And you'll notice that I'm not bringing it into the aura, I'm just bringing it into the petals. Now I'm going to do something that's going to be kind of crazy, but just go with me here. I'm going to go right over the top of the crescent moons here. Going very softly, but still nonetheless going over the top of them. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up that grass green and I'm going to just give a little shadow in here. And I'm going to go about halfway through on these in the front. Just like so. Once I have that, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to press a little bit harder, giving that a little bit of a deepening in the shadow. And then I'm going to go ahead and pick up that graphite. And I'm going to do a dusting of the graphite in there. So you can see that it isn't just for stones, it's really great for adding definition into the petals as well. I'm going to take some of that lime peel green, this is the lighter green, and you can see that I'm starting to blur my edges. I would say I'm using a medium pressure here, and you can see what I'm doing is I'm starting to manipulate that graphite to move forward. Look at the difference between here and there. Isn't that beautiful the way it's so rich? I just love that. So I'm just coming through and dragging that around a little bit. Just like so. So go ahead and do your first petals, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with the second set and do something a little bit different back in there. Okay, so you can see that I'm just dragging that color around and really getting a real nice richness to this. So for this next part, what we're going to do is we're going to pick up a little bit of that grass green in here, and I'm going to add a little bit of a shadow towards the top, and then I'm going to do a little shadow on the bottom, and I'm going to leave the lightest part in the center. And you can see that I'm going right over the black. What this is going to do is it's going to make that feel as though the black is underneath the stone. Coming up top. Giving that a little bit of a push. Same thing over here. Same thing over here. And dusting it. I'm going to get a little bit of that graphite going just at the top point and just at the bottom point. And this is where things get a little interesting. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to lose a little bit of that definition from the black in here. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lime peel green again. This is the lighter green, and you can see that I'm starting to blur out my edges. And I love this technique of making it look as though it's underneath the stone. This almost gets kind of like a feeling of an emerald piece. I need a little bit of graphite in here. And you can see that that just gives this a really nice richness. So play, enjoy what you're doing with these, and if you want to, you can even come back in with some of that white and just kind of blend in that area. And you can see I'm going right over the top of that color, the black pen, because I want to make it look like it's underneath. So I'm trying to lose some of that definition of it. Isn't that so cool? I love the way that that looks. And then when we use a little bit of our white gel pen, it'll really have some nice definition to it. So play, enjoy, and then when we come back, we're going to start to add in a little bit of a tangle right in these first little petals. So we are going to add in the tangle printemps. You can see that I have it written right here. Some people call it printemps. That's the more French pronunciation, or printemps, some people call it. And all it is it's spring or a spiral. And for our particular piece, what we're going to do is we're going to add a little bit of weight to our spiral. And so what that looks like is just coming in and adding a little bit of an aura and then filling it in. And then you can, come back in and do another right in there, and that gives it just this kind of intensity that is very, very cool. So I'm going to take this away, and we're going to start to bring it into the main piece here. And I've got a little bit of my grass green here, and you want to make sure that your pencil is really well sharpened up. So we're going to be tangling with the color that we're coloring with. Okay, a little bit of wallpaper here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to start in the center, and let's zoom in on that. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to develop printemps in there. So you can see there's printemps. And then I'm going to give it a little bit of weight. And I'll put a little bit of weight in here. And a little bit of weight over here. And look at how cool that looks inside of that petal. Isn't that so neat? I just love that. So I'm just going to come in, build it up, give it some weight, just like so. And then I'll go over to the next one and do the same. Little bit of weight, little bit of weight, little bit of weight. So super fun, really interesting. And then if you want to come back in with a little bit of that graphite again, right in here, and just give it this kind of foggy kind of background, you can come back in and start to blur that right into it, and it just gives it even more of a mysterious look, which I think is very, very cool. So go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to start to work with Buria. I'm going to pick up my lime peel green here, and I'm going to start by doing a demonstration on the left-hand side of the butterfly here. So I'm going to come in and very softly dust in a little bit of that lime peel green, and you can see that I'm working in little circles here. And just dusting it in. I'm going to give that a little bit of a close-up there. I'm going to skip the second wing and I'm going to go down to the third. Just like so. Now once I've got that the way that I want it, I'm going to pick up a little bit of the grass green and I'm going to start to dust in a little bit of the grass green. You'll notice that I'm going to come up to the top of the wing and I'm going to leave the center that kind of light green, and I'm going to let the darkness come up to the top. Now I'm going fairly lightly with this because it is such a dark color. I don't have to push hard. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to bring a little bit of depth in towards the center, and then I'll come out to the outer edge. And give that a little bit of depth. I'm going to do the same thing down in here. So a little bit of depth in here. And then I'm coming out here and I'm going fairly soft. And then I'll give that a little push along the edge. I'm going to pick up a little bit of that lime peel green now, and I'm going to give this a little bit of softening along the edge. I'll come up here, a little softening along the edge, just kind of blurring that out. Same thing in here, and same thing in here. So I'm going to do this on the other side, same spots, and then when we come back I'm going to add a little bit into the other ones as well, and then we're going to do some wallpaper in the wings of this beautiful tangle. For the second set of wings, I'm going to come in with a little bit of that grass green, and I'm just going to do a little bit of a dusting of that grass green in here, and you'll notice that that grass green has a little bit more of a grayish tint to it because we're not putting it over the top of the lime peel green. You're going to see me come in over here and do the same thing, just a really soft dusting of that grass green. And then I'm going to pick up a little bit of my graphite, and you're going to see me dust it in right next to that grass green. So I'm just going to bring that in really nice and soft. I'm going very, very lightly with that pencil. I want it to be able to be blendable, and so if you go too hard with it, it will attach to the paper. So we really want to be able to move it around. So I'm going to pick up a little bit of that white and I'm going to start to manipulate that color a little bit. And I'm going to start to blur it out. I'm going to do the same thing over here, just letting it work its way out. And you can see that I'm moving it back and forth. I'm letting it kind of float into the darker green as well as moving it out into the white. Same thing over here. And then finally what I'm going to do is I'm going to just dust the edge just a little bit with the graphite. Once I have that, coming in with a little bit of that white, manipulating it. Setting the color down a little bit more. Starting to get a really pretty sheen in the center. So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and when we come back, we're going to start to bring some wallpaper into this. Let's bring a little texture into this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in with my grass green, and you can see that it's really well sharpened up here. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create this little line that's going to go and divide the space here. And we're going to put an orb on the line, just like so. And we're going to do another one right here. And then we're going to do a little bit of dusting on each side for a little bit of shadow. So almost like a string of pearls there, but a little separate. I'm going to do that on the other side, so dividing the space. Nice orb. And another orb. Shade. And shade. So I'm going to do that again all the way throughout. Now you're going to notice on the second one, I'm just going to do one orb. Now in this particular piece, I'm using the grass green where I have the gray, and I'm using it as a little bit of contrast to keep things interesting. So I'm just going to come over to the other side, do the same, give a little shadow. And look at how pretty that is. Isn't that cool? So these are going to get singulars as we come down into the piece here. A little bit of shadow. And same thing down here. Just adding a little bit of dimension and a little bit of texture. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to finish up the other side. You go ahead and do yours, and I'll finish up mine. Remember to relax and enjoy what you're doing, okay? This piece I want to have a really kind of soft feeling to it, so I'm actually not going to be inking in my borders today. What I am going to do is I'm going to start to bring in a little bit of that violet down into the places where I've got these little interstices. So you can see that I'm just going to come in with a little bit of that violet, and anywhere where I have my border, and I'm just going to make that a little bit clearer for you, I'm just going to dust in a little bit of that violet. And the reason why I wanted to keep a nice soft border is I almost want this to feel like a little snippet in time. And I don't want it to be encased. I want it to be a little bit more free. So I'm just coming in and doing a really soft dusting around the butterfly itself. Okay, so go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to work with a little bit of graphite and a little bit of the black pen. So have fun with this. Let's give our butterfly his antennae here. So all I'm going to do is I'm picking up my black pen, and I'm going to just give a little bit of a soft fescue. Fescue is the tangle where you have a little bit of line and a teardrop to it. Same thing over here. And just pulling that in to make that a little bit more interesting. And what I love about that is it really makes the butterfly look like it's moving above that beautiful texture of the Shattuck or crescent moon. So I'm also going to pick up a little bit of my graphite, and I'm going to turn the piece, and I'm going to add a little bit of shading in towards the center and up towards the top. Same thing over here. And I'm going really, really lightly with this. I don't want it to get too muddy. Same thing down in here. Same thing up top. Now, if you wanted to use a little bit of a blending stump for this, you could use your blending stump, or you can pick up your white pencil to blend it out. You're welcome to do either. You can see that I'm still kind of adding a little bit of a shadow on either side here of those little petals that we have here. And then what I'm going to do, I'm going to zoom in on this so that you can really see what I'm up to here. I'm going to pick this up. You can see here's my pencil, and I'm just going to blur this out a little bit and give it a little bit of drama. And this works really well with those #2 pencils, the really soft pencils. You could even do this with your Prismacolor gray. I love the cool gray. It's one of my favorites for doing shading. If you don't want to work with graphite, you can work with the really pretty cool grays. And so you can see that that really develops a very interesting feel on the piece. If you wanted to come back and build the drama a little bit, you could come in and do a little bit heavier line in there and then come back in and blur it out with some of the white just to get a little bit of extra drama. So have some fun with this. Remember to leave some of the light in the center so that you have a little bit of shine. So I'm going to bring in a little bit of a dusting of graphite into our little tipple that we have in here, and I'm just going to go very, very lightly along the bottom and just lightly dust so that we get a little bit of a glimmer of light up at the top of the tipple. And if you want to, you can blend it out. I'm actually not going to do it on mine because mine are too small and I'm afraid I'm going to lose the light. So I'm going to leave that alone. But I am going to bring in a little bit of a dusting of the graphite along the inside pieces of where I have the auras and leave a little bit of a light source at the top. And then I'll go ahead and give this a little bit of darkness on either side, and you can see that just by having that little sheen in there, that makes things interesting. You could even come in here and do the same thing just by adding a little bit of graphite in there and adding a little bit of darkness on the edges out there. So go ahead and do yours, and then when we come back, we're going to work with the white gel pen. Let's add some white highlights into the piece. You can see I've got my jelly roll in my hand here, and I'm just going to get it started, and I'm going to put in a little bit of a sheen of light in here. You're going to see me come down towards the bottom and just add this almost like a triangle like shape for my highlight, and then I'm going to do a little square right next to it. Really kind of pretty and soft in there. And then I'm going to come up to where I have these petals in here, and I'm just going to do 2 little dots, one that's a little bit smaller than the other, so a smaller dot and then a fairly large dot or a larger dot. So coming in here and building that up. And then I'm going to come up in here and do the same thing that I did at the bottom. Just give that almost like a triangular like feel with a little bit of a square next to it or a circle, just depending on what you have room for. So I'm just coming in and creating that sheen. And isn't that neat how that just gives that such a glossy feel? So you go ahead and do yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then we're going to add in just a couple more highlights when we come back. So I'm going to add in just a couple more highlights into the center where we have our crescent moons. I'm just going to come in right into this one right here, and I'm just going to add a little bit of a larger dot and a smaller dot underneath it. And you can see that I'm going to do that all the way around. Larger dot and then a smaller dot, just to give it a little bit of that juiciness and interest. I really love these white pens. They can do so much for a piece, and they're fairly inexpensive. I think that you can get the jelly rolls for under $3. And if you don't care for the jelly rolls, you could do a Posca pen. Those are wonderful as well. So you can see how that's bringing a little bit more juiciness and almost like a shimmer into the piece here. So go ahead and finish up yours. I'm going to finish up mine, and then when we come back, we're going to add one final detail. So I'm going to go ahead and add my chop into the piece here. Your chop is just your initial. It's your way of saying that you've completed the piece. And I'm going to hide mine right underneath the wing here, just to show that I've completed the piece. And this is the time where you take a look over your piece and just enjoy what you just created. You just spent some really nice time just letting go of the outside world and enjoying the creative process, and really offering gratitude for the opportunity to do some self-care, take a time out, and feed your spirit, to feed the very thing that loves to create, right? So just putting in that chop whenever you're ready and noting that you've completed. I'm going to bring in my original piece here, and I just, I want to show how differently things turn out. Every time I come back, I always do something a little bit different, and so I just love that these are both a little bit different in their own way. And I hope that you enjoyed the class. If you did, please give it a thumbs up or leave a nice review. Even better, hit the subscribe button so that more people can find us and do Zentangle in color. If you haven't joined our Tangled Yogi Art community page on Facebook, please do so. We have a wonderful community where everybody gets to share their artwork, and it's so wonderful to see all the different things that people do with these classes. So I hope you enjoyed the class today. I'm Rami Marks, your Tangled Yogi, and I look forward to tangling with you soon. Bye for now.